All right, big
How are you, mate?
bad dirty Harry. What's going on?
Mate, I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Before we start, hold on, something very important we have to start with. What are your pronouns? No.
Mate, I don't actually have any.
Really?
Yeah,
You are they, them, you're
the,
not
the
he, him.
uh, I guess I'm he, him. I wouldn't announce my pronouns like they're anything to do connected to my personality or my character. I don't subscribe to the notion that gender is on some sort of a spectrum or that sexes are interchangeable. I just don't. Yeah, I just don't subscribe to that.
Harrison, you are definitely on some kind of a spectrum, mate. Admit it. I think you have to be knowing maths. All right. So this person says, firstly, was he told by producers to be the shit stirrer or was he doing that on his own? How much were you getting paid for your performance? Was he being paid to act? I found him the only entertaining one on it.
Yeah, it's a tough one to answer because no, I'm not an actor. My performance on MAFS was organic, believe it or not, and I knew it's funny when I was on the show and going through the show. I would talk to my mates and I'd be like, I wonder who the villain's going to be this year.
Are you
And
serious?
yeah, we would just laugh about it, joke about it, and every single one of the guys was like, "Mate, you're the villain this
It's
year."
going to be you.
And yeah. So going through it, I was just like, you know what? If being outspoken and being confrontational and standing up for myself makes me the bad guy, then so be it.
Oh, of course it does,
If
mate.
that
You're not allowed to be
is going to be,
confrontational unless you're a woman. If you're a woman
well,
and you're a big bad fucking feminist hard ass like Evelyn who like stood up to the big bad Harrison, and that's empowering, and that sort of confrontational nature is empowering. But if a straight white male does it, oh, it's the worst thing in the world.
well, I felt like the women really knew that the women on the show really knew that they could more or less say and do whatever they liked because there's not really any repercussions anymore, right? Um,
But
I think in the push for equality has done a lot for women's rights, and I totally support that. But I feel like there are some women that take that a little bit too far, right? There are some women that go, well, he's not going to hit me. He's not going to shout at me. He's not going to call me names. He's not going to raise his voice to me. If he does any of these things, it's abuse. It's domestic violence. So I find that there's a lot of women that kind of feel like they've got this attitude like you can't touch me, nanny nanny nanny. The girls kind of knew that, in a sense, especially. So I was speaking generally there about interactions between men and women, and for some of those things, I think it's totally a good thing. I think violence is totally wrong, but I think it's talking on the maths, married at first sight. I feel like the women kind of knew that the men were always going to be fighting with their hands tied behind their back. Whatever we said had to be 100% accurate and the truth, right?
yeah.
And B, we had to do it, and especially me, because I'm the big sort of muscular alpha male type. I felt like I really had to, and people have accused me of keeping a monotone voice and just, being emotionless. That was the only way I could communicate because I felt like if I ever raised my voice or got frustrated,
Yep.
it's, oh, look at this guy, he's all muscles and no brains. He's the domestic violence. He's this, he's that.
Oh,
And
yeah,
I
they
knew,
love throwing
I
that
knew
out there.
I knew that if I was in confrontation, especially with a woman on the show, for whatever reason, that I had to keep very calm, keep very centered, not raise my voice, not get abusive.
You did a great job. You did a great job at that.
It
You were
was
very
tough, mate.
logical.
It was really
And
tough.
some of the things you said, I think one of my favorite things you said on that show was you were talking to, what's the chick's name that had cystic fibrosis?
Lyndall.
Lyndall was talking about moving cities and whatnot. And you just came out and said something like, Lyndall, I think it's about time you go and do some remote accounting.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you've got to remember that the women were trying to corner Cam into giving up his life and moving to Perth.
Yeah, why?
And all I was doing was just saying, like, Lyndall, have you even given any thought to the notion that you could do that?
I don't think she had. I don't think she had. And there's.
I mean, Cam makes a living working remotely as a carpenter, building homes.
And he lives in this amazing place. He lives in an amazing location in like the best country in the world. Why wouldn't she be open to going and experiencing that lifestyle, even if it's just
for my accountant? She can make accounting.
If you're an accountant, exactly. Work on a computer.
Exactly. She. Okay. So the way I looked at it was carpentry and building work is an essential service. Accounting, we learned from the pandemic that it's not essential. People can do that from home, right? So why can't Lyndall do her accounting remotely and take the pressure off the relationship? And it was funny. As soon as I opened my mouth, it was like all hell broke loose. It was like, how do we should have an opinion?
Oh, how can anyone ever get offended by that? It doesn't make sense.
Bro. Claire was offended because someone shushed her. Like, that's how...
I'm going to say something right now, man. I'm going to say something. The women on your season, and I'm not saying I don't like any of them specifically or whatever. I'm pretty impartial to all of them, to be honest. However, I noticed a pattern here, and I saw this on my season. They're on there to play this character of a big, emboldened, feminist, proud, career-driven woman. They're playing a character, and you were the target. They singled you out because they went, oh, this is the bad guy. If I attack him, I'll become known as like the awesome, strong feminist type.
Yeah, I felt like it was a huge season for double standards. So Claire put on this, and again, I don't have anything against Claire. I just want to preface this. We went out for drinks the other night. We get along fine. But I don't want to. I would never talk bad about Claire outside of the experiment. I don't think I would talk bad about anyone outside of the experiment. That includes Bronte and anyone else that I was on the show with. I will only ever attack the behavior that I saw during the show, right? And so I just want to preface this because I continuously get like sort of asked, are we still doing interviews? You're still talking bad about Bronte. I'm talking bad about Bronte on the show that we all watch.
Yeah.
Right. That's in the context of the show that we all watch. I haven't talked bad about Bronte.
Don't worry about it, mate. Life. You don't have to justify yourself to anyone, man. And I fell into this trap as well, justifying my actions and my behaviors. Mate, you did nothing wrong from what I saw. If anything, I thought you were a stand-up guy, a role model. You're a single father. You work hard. You've got a kid. You're on that show to find love and to find someone.
What I was alluding to was that Claire at the start of the show put on this huge song and dance about Jesse asking her to have an inside voice and then shushing her in a bookstore. Yeah. And then only a couple of weeks later, I was having an issue in my relationship and she said, Harrison, shut the fuck up. And I was like, the double standard that wasn't called out by the other women.
100%.
Because they were all like, oh my God, Jesse, how could you shush Claire? And then 2 weeks later, she's telling me to shut the fuck up. Crickets from everyone at the table.
100%.
All the guys there, except for me, were afraid to call the women out because they didn't want to be viewed as sexist or misogynistic. And I thought it was bullshit. And it was really fucking pathetic. And if this season of MAFS is a greater reflection of society as a whole, I'm fucking greatly disappointed. That I think it's really important that we have equality, and in order to have equality, we need to hold everyone to the same standard. Yeah. And I feel like we didn't do that this season. The women got away with murder, and the men were villainized for being toxic. There's nothing toxic about not getting along with your partner.
No, exactly.
That happens every day of the week, all across this country.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly, and this is a key.
People put on camera.
This is a key problem with, I guess, feminism, modern feminism, as we see it. Right, it's gone so far past equality now to this point where it is attacking males, especially straight white males. Every male in every TV commercial is an absolute doofus. And if you attack a woman based on a situation that's happened, like if you get into an argument with a woman, for example, and call her out on something, people automatically call you, accuse you of like abuse. And it's like, no, I'm not attacking women in general. I'm having a discussion and I disagree with one thing that this woman said, which I'm allowed to do. I'm well within my rights to disagree or even not like a woman. You're allowed to not like, there's heaps of shitty women out there, but you can't say one bad word about any specific woman without being called like a woman hater or anti-woman or something like that. And this is something that people have swung way too far in this day and age. It's absolutely ridiculous.
So Alyssa was having a go at Claire at the commitment ceremony, right? And Alyssa was hammering Claire like, you lied to her, you did this. And I turned to Janelle and Bronte and I was like, didn't she have an affair with a married man?
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like, why should be like coming at Claire so hard for this when she's done arguably much worse in her life?
Much worse.
Who is she to be the moral compass for this situation, right?
Much worse.
And the girls were like, both of their reaction was, no, we don't talk about that. Yeah, and I was like, what? I was like, what? That's been brought up on the show previously. It relates to this situation. Yeah. Why can't we talk about it?
Yeah.
And I was hushed from discussing that part of the listen's past, which pertained to that situation. I was hushed up, right? But then everything I did in the experiment was always brought back to, well, I was seeing someone before or seeing multiple girls before I went in. Like, it was just constantly like, mate, I was free range. And the guys were free range.
Of course, and it's
the women were a protected class.
Of course, mate. And you're right. You're saying that is a reflection of our society. That's how our society currently works. It's actually disgusting, and it's not just feminism or men and women. It's if you don't have like the correct opinion, if you're not on like the favored or fashionable side of politics on whatever the issue is now, you are silenced. You are evil. You are banned from social media. You're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to express your opinion. And it's absolutely disgusting. We used to live in a world where there was free speech and everyone was allowed to express themselves and allowed to disagree about shit. Now you can't disagree about anything without being called a bigot or hateful or whatever it might be, man. It's fucking bullshit. It's this victim culture. It's so prominent in our society, whether it's race or gender or sexuality or mental health. Like, victimhood is it's the booming industry. And it's
you've got to remember, it's not, that's not unusual because women and men argue from a completely different standpoint. And I've seen it in previous relationships I've been in. I saw it on The Experiment. I see it play out on other television shows. I see it in my friends' relationships. It's just a fact that men and women tend to argue differently, right? Now, in my experience, women are the ones that tend to change facts, change events, gaslight their partner, manipulate their partner, and lie. Those are quite often things females do in order to play the victim, shift the blame, make someone else the one at fault, right?
Yeah.
Men, in my experience, men don't really do that. We're quite logical across the board.
Fucking accurate. Men are logical. Yeah. We are logical creatures. Like, definitely not perfect. There's a lot of asshole men out there. I think women are more manipulative than men. Very much so. From my experience,
I don't like making broad statements like that. But what I will say is I feel like men and women have different tools in their arsenal, right? I feel like women can't be the aggressors. Again, it's a general statement, but women can't really be the physical aggressors or the overpowering aggressor in an argument. So usually what they'll do is they'll twist things, make things up, lie, try and sort of deceive their partner. And the problem is when women have become very, especially the one I was matched with on MAFS, women have become very acutely aware of how it looks when they accuse, especially a man, of lying. Now, what it means is if they're lying and then when you try and correct them, they call you the liar, it's very, very, very hard to come back from that. Very, very hard to communicate with someone like that. And what it does is it gaslights your partner and it completely dissolves their trust in you when you do that. Now, Bronte did that to me from fucking day one, right? The other women I saw do it on the show from day one. Another example that I'll give you now. The women that were at the bar that night with Claire all knew about the kiss. Sandy, Lyndall, Bronte found out later. So the four of them, they all got matching X tattoos while they were on the show. Right. Now, at the first commitment ceremony, when Jesse called out Adam for what he perceived to be was flirting that night and the kiss and all that sort of stuff, Lyndall knew about the kiss, but she only said enough to throw Adam under the bus and protect Claire. Now, how is that behavior not getting the vitriol it deserves? She lied, she manipulated, and she gaslit, all in the one shot, right?
That's because women are a protected species, especially the audience. Mainly women.
Well, I agree with you, right? But why they're being protected is by the network. If the network had showed Lyndall's confession that she knew about the kiss and that she apologized to the group, right, which happened at the back of a commitment ceremony where she apologized and all the women that knew that night came out and said, I knew about the kiss, right? Bronte did, Lyndall did, Sandy did.
Yep.
Evelyn said, that's fucked, right? Why not show it? Why not show Evelyn standing up against the women? Why not? I actually respected Evelyn for that. Right? Why not show that? It's all well and good to show Evelyn standing up to me and Dan and all these other guys. That's fine. Why not show Evelyn standing up against the women, doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Now, I've got my own issues with Evelyn because I feel like she gaslit and lied and manipulated as well.
How did she gaslit? What do you mean?
The whole butt dial thing, bro. That just never fucking happened. It just never happened. So the butt dial happened. It's hard for me to say that it happened, didn't happen. It's confusing. Rupert called Evelyn. She did not overhear Dan and Hugo at the same time conversing about their wives. That didn't happen. What happened was Hugo was talking about Taylor. She may or may not have overheard that. At a later stage through the night, Dan was talking about Sandy. She definitely didn't overhear that because it happened at a different location at a different time. Rupert got drunk, came home, blabbed to his wife. Yeah. She then used that information against other people in the group. She'd only been there a week. And then she made up this bullshit story to protect Rupert. He didn't like he dogged the boy.
Rupert 100% is going, oh, I've told you this stuff, and she's going, I want to be the feminist queen. I want to call him out on this. And he's going, no, you can't do that because I told you.
She's like, no, I'll protect you. I'll protect you.
Yeah. That was a guy. 100% that's what happened.
Yeah, I overheard it all organically. You're not at fault. You haven't thrown the boys under the bus.
It's a pussy move for both. He's a pussy. Why not stand up and fucking admit to it like a man? That is a pussy move. And even from Evelyn,
he's being hailed as the unsung hero of this season. Same with Ollie. Do you know that every time Ollie talked shit about me, it was with his wife in another room? To a camera
guy is a squirming, effeminate. I don't like.
I'm friends with everyone there.
I don't like him. I'm not friends with him. I don't want nothing to do with it.
But what I will say is, no, look, I like Ollie and I really like Tani, his wife, as well. I think they're good people.
He's fake. I find him fake as fuck.
Well, look, I mean, I just can't imagine Ollie standing up to me. That's what I'm saying. But again, like,
he's fake.
Doing it. He did it from in a room with his wife in another room, talking shit about me behind my back. Like, how is that? How is that? Yeah, how is that being championed? Like, bro, Grosky fucking balls.
It's being championed by losers who care about this shit that gets talked about on MAFS. It's not being championed by real people or men or anyone in real society. You know, you're in this little bubble right now.
Really good point. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
And I don't blame you. I get sucked into that world. I was sucked into that world, but outside of that world, there are a lot of lovely, normal, logical people who totally understand that, bro. So,
mate, I think that's a great context. And it's funny. I think that's a great point you just made, and that is that it is being championed, but by a very small subset of the population that are people that want sort of these effeminate, wimpy guys to be the norm. And it's just not, it's not the world I want to fucking live in.
Mate, it's not the world most women want to live in. Most women be much more attracted to you than they would be to Ollie. And I'm talking from experience here, mate. Like, you get out there in the real world, and look at it. A lot of women won't admit this in public, but they want a strong alpha type male who's just straight to the point, very masculine. They don't want these weak, squirmish. It's feminism in the media that are trying to push this idea of weak, squirmish men being attractive. In the real world, that is not the case. It's total bullshit. Don't let the lies, don't let the fucking media and brainwashing fool you or anyone else about that.
Well, I always liken it to who are the most successful, highest paid, hottest men in Hollywood, right? Because I will say that culture really dictates who is going to be successful in popular culture, television, media. And in the 80s and 90s, it was Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and these huge, overbulked guys, right? And they were seen as like these action heroes and guys, like they were unreal. The idea of the muscular alpha male has never really gone away. Like, the most successful, hottest guy in the world right now is Chris Hemsworth, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I like Chris Hemsworth is because he's a dad to a bunch of kids, he's a great family man, seems to have some really good values, does a lot for charity, but also he's ripped, he's bulked up, he's a good looking bloke, and he's alpha as well.
Exactly.
Right?
He goes after what he wants.